All right, so today I am here with Gay Tucciarone, and so super excited to chat today, Gay.
I'm happy to be here. Great to talk to you.
Awesome. So I'm curious, could you tell me a bit about like what called you into ministry and how did you find your way right now to Cumberland Community Church?
Well, it's funny. I was thinking about that earlier. And when I first started in ministry a long time ago, I was in Savannah and I had three young kids and I was a volunteer. So I kind of, I don't know if I felt called to ministry. I felt called to help out because my kids were in kids' church. So I started helping with them. And then oh my gosh, my youngest one was probably 5. So 25 years ago, I
Oh,
started part-time at my church in Savannah. I was a small group coordinator where I would help because we had a large group, small group format. So I would help them. Did that for 15 years. Fast forward, we moved to Atlanta. I was I shouldn't say this, I was done with ministry. I'm like, no, not for me. Don't think so. It's been great. But so I started working for Orange and I was an Orange specialist for about 10 years. Loved it. Yeah, it definitely was a calling because I had learned so much about ministry and I was helping other churches to do ministry. And of course, the church I was at, which was Cumberland, I got lured back into the just part time. We just need someone to help with preschool. So I helped with preschool for a few years. And then 2021, they asked if I would consider being the next gen director. And, I really prayed about it. And if anyone is looking for a great book when you're really praying through something, I read Mark Batterson's in a Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day. I don't know if it's one of his most well-known books, but it was
okay.
so good about, if you don't go after an opportunity that God puts in front of you, the rest of your life you'll think, should I have done that thing? And I just, felt God really strongly saying, I know you love Orange. I know it's going to be real hard to leave, but this is where I'm calling you, to this church at this time. And so here I am. I oversee officially kindergarten or birth through high school. Right now, uh, I am doing that, but I also am concentrating on elementary.
Yeah, absolutely. So I appreciate you sharing your story there, Gay. And I'm curious, a lot of people listening are probably on the fence about pursuing a calling into ministry, whether they have or have not, been full time, I'll miss just full time ministry, but like vocational ministry
Yeah, yeah.
before. So, what advice would you give people that are kind of on the fence about and taking a job in ministry at a church?
Hmm. I would say seek a lot of wise counsel, because talk to people that have been in ministry a long time, um, because I think you can go into ministry thinking that this is church world and these are all
Hmm.
believers and they're all going to be real nice, and that's not true.
Hmm.
But just seeking a lot of wise counsel, I think, from a lot of sources, people that have been in ministry, but and people that know you well, people that know um that know your heart, that have seen what makes you want to get up in the morning, what makes you excited. Because if they can see that, if you're a volunteer, that thing is what you love. Like, you might go to your job because you make money, but the thing that you love, what is that thing that you love that you really want to pursue? That's what I did when I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I should do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it is a great, you definitely can volunteer first in a role similar to the one you might take on
Mhm.
staff. So yeah, and that's a kind of a good segue And I know you probably have a lot of good learnings here based on your experience as an orange specialist working with lots of ministries. Recruiting volunteers, it's on everyone's mind all the time. What are some strategies you use to recruit volunteers or have seen other people work well or have heard about via your experience at Orange?
Um, I don't know if I can plug a book, but I will tell you this one that I love.
Yeah.
Darren Kaiser, who works with Orange, wrote. It's called "Stop Recruiting, Start Retaining."
Okay.
It is one of the best books I've ever read about just
Mhm.
volunteer culture, and I think just recruit to a vision. Um, you
Mhm.
know, there are Sundays where you're like, do you have is your background check clear and are you breathing? Okay, come on and serve today.
Yeah.
But that's not overall, that's not the best advice. But just really recruiting to a vision, like which means first you have to figure out what is your vision. If your ministry was running exactly how you wanted it to run, what would it look like? And what team of people would you want around you? And I think if you can create that kind of atmosphere, your volunteers are going to be the best people to invite other people in to serve because if they're happy and they're fulfilled and they feel like they have a sense of team. I don't know if this was in the book, but I know just there's a lot of discussion around like why do people for instance, volunteer with the Red Cross. They have
Mhm.
to leave their jobs, sometimes take paid or unpaid leave of absences, go into dangerous places, be uncomfortable. But they do it because that sense of calling and I'm making the world a better place. So I think the best thing that you can do to bring people to your ministry is to make it the best place in the church to want to serve.
Yeah, I like that a lot, especially that example from the Red Cross, because yeah, like it's a lot like life and limb are on the line, honestly,
Mhm.
sometimes in a lot of the environments those folks serve in. So what have you found is typically a good way to cultivate that? Like, as you're thinking about, hey, what do we want, or how do we make, you know, volunteering in kids ministry just like the no-brainer that everyone that we want to volunteer here wants to volunteer? Like, what are some things you've
Um,
seen work well there?
We do a lot of food.
Absolutely.
I think just trying to make it fun because sometimes it is challenging. And just little things like remembering people's birthdays or when they come in having I mean we don't serve elaborate food. We don't have a huge budget, but um just having coffee for volunteers, having when it was Easter Sunday, we had 3 or 4 we had 3 services. So for our volunteers that came early, we brought donuts, we brought, like, more than just snacky food, and,
Yeah.
uh but just creating that atmosphere of that you are so welcome here, that you we couldn't do it without we tell our volunteers that every week. You are you're the secret sauce, you're the thing that makes this work, and just don't make it just make it as fun as you can and that it's not drudgery and the big I think something we really push at is you're not just checking off a box. Oh, I served, check, this check, but no, you really are making a lifetime difference, an eternal difference. So just it's all about what you create. um you know and ask yourself too, if I was not on staff, if I would I want to volunteer here? What would it look like for me to want to be involved?
Absolutely. It's definitely important to, take the people you're recruiting, like their perspective, and love that. And could not agree more. Your ministry and the impact on it is really an extension of the people in it. Like it's more of who as opposed to what you're doing. So on the flip side of that, though, like let's talk a bit about the what. So I'm curious, what are some tips you have for just creating engaging experiences both in church and kids ministry and outside, like in both church and home and with parents?
And with kids and parents, I would say in church, sometimes it's little things that you don't think are going to make a difference. Like we sitting in our elementary large group right now, and the theme this month is creativity. So we've just started several months ago actually doing the theme for the month. So I think back in May it was get your game on, and I just am fortunate to just have, probably because I have older grown kids, I have a ton of like vintage retro gaming stuff.
Okay.
Set up some tables, threw that out, printed a poster, and when the kids came in, it was like it was magic. Like, "Oh my gosh, look at all," "Are
Yeah.
these prizes?" No, these aren't prizes, but I'm like, this month is creativity. We got some easels, put different, artistic medium up. So I would say, like, when the kids come in, make it I tell my team a lot, make people feel like you were waiting for them to get there. Whether
Mm,
it's the classroom you're in, or if you have a parent meeting, just little things that don't have to be expensive. But when people come in, they feel like they were waiting for me to get here. They were ready for me to get here. And outside of, we just this summer tried something really different. We didn't do a traditional like 5-day VBS. We did something we called Fam Jam, where we did 3 events all throughout the summer. Don't know if I'll do 3 again, but
sounds
we
like a
really
lot.
yeah, the atmosphere we tried to create again was when people got there, whatever team they were on, there was a sign with their team name. The leaders of each had if it was the red team or the orange team, they had an orange hat. Or again, we don't have a huge budget, but just looking for sometimes little things. This fall, we're going to do volunteer name tags with pictures. So when parents drop their kids off, they'll really be able to start knowing, oh, this person I recognize them, I see their name. So just, making it really personal. I guess for me, that's what we've really strived to, is trying to make it really personal.
Yeah, absolutely. And that pairs well with what you said a moment ago. Like, hey, make it feel like you've been waiting for people to get here.
Mhm.
So yeah, that personal touch is outstanding. And I'm curious, what are some values you and the rest of the folks at Cumberland operate by to kind of make this happen?
Um, I would, again, it goes back to, because a lot of us are on our next gen team, everybody is a parent, but
Mm,
how would you want to be treated? How do you want your kids to feel? I will say one of our golden rules is don't believe everything kids say about their parents,
uh,
because, you know, it may or may not be true.
yeah.
um, but again, I just the value of honor and respect, that even when a parent is upset about something, really trying to just to honor that, um, to hear where they're at. And
Mm,
I heard a great, when you've been around a long time, you hear a lot of great things. But
absolutely.
someone said once that vision leaks. So like, you're working in ministry. I'm working in ministry all day, every day. It's what I think about. Parents aren't, they are on the soccer field, they're at the grocery store, they're trying to do homework. So they don't wake up every day and think, most of them don't, I'm the spiritual leader of my home. I
Mm,
need to really like deep into the psyche of my child today, really understand where they're at. It's in there, but I think as ministry leaders, a value you have to have is, for me, having been a parent, is to remember what it's like.
Mhm.
to put myself again, just empathy, put myself into their shoes and remember, you might have not slept last night. Your kids might have argued with you all the way to church, but just to create a really welcoming atmosphere that has people that have joy and that genuinely we're glad you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the empathy goes a long way there. So, yeah, well, that is all spectacular advice. Julie, appreciate it, Gay. And I'm curious, like, what just closing advice would you have for kids ministry leaders?
I would say that's a great question. Just remember what you do is hard. I mean, that doesn't sound really encouraging, but it's
Mhm.
hard. Sometimes it's really hard. There's just a weight of responsibility that you carry, whether it's like the physical safety of kids, the someone used to call me the bathroom police because I'm like, check the bathrooms, make sure no one's in there, but just
Yeah,
the physical safety part. And it's a heavy um emotional and spiritual burden as well because you're having to you're having to I mean it's spiritual responsibility. You have to you have to realize that there's a lot of eternal consequences. So, just find and here's this is kind of a random piece of advice, but I would
yeah,
say find a small circle of people that don't go to your church that you
mhm,
trust more than anything, that sometimes you can just vent and complain, and they're
yeah,
not gonna try to fix it. They are simply going to listen to you and just go, that's yeah, they're not trying to
uh,
fix it. Sometimes you just need to say it and be done with it, and it's better if they don't go to your church, so a fellow
absolutely.
believer, but
Yeah, awesome. Well, that is spectacular advice. So, really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing so much, Gay. And yeah, glad you could join us today.
oh, great, thanks for asking me.